Hi, I'm Greg Garcia. I'm here at Umpqua headquarters. I'm a signature tyer for Umpqua, and I'm really excited to show everybody some of my signature patterns. I hope they work for you, and along the way, I'll show you some tips and tricks that might make tying these a little easier for you. Thanks for watching. All right, the first fly I'm going to tie for you is a Rojo Midge. It was the very first pattern that Umpqua picked up from me several years ago. And I want to say 20 some years, and it's still one of my best-selling flies. I get a lot of questions on tying in general. How do you get beads on hooks? And it might seem like a very simple deal, but here's what I do. Whether it's a metal bead or a little glass bead like this, I will moisten my finger so the bead will stick onto my tip of my finger. Then I just grab my hook, put the point in, spin it around, and it's on. So hopefully that'll help you a little bit when you do that next time. Now, I'm going to be using this stuff for the front gill called Rojo. It's Ultra Floss from Ultra B. A little hard to find these days. If you can't use it or find it, you can also use some Unistretch floss in white. It kind of has that same properties as the floss. And you can use that. But since I have lots of Unifloss, I'm going to use this, or I should say the Rojo floss. So I'm just going to do a quick little jam knot, which is 1, 2, 3 wraps. And I count my wraps on this fly, or when I put on this bead, because if you don't, many people have trouble getting the bead over this bundle. So I have 3 wraps. I'll do a little pinch wrap to get it centered. There's 4, 5, 6. I'm going to cut off the section I'm not going to use. And then I'm going to just quickly do 2 turns of a whip finish right at the back of that butt. So there's no more than really 7 wraps of thread there. Now I can grab this bead and it should slide over that bundle nicely. Next thing I'm going to do is reattach my thread. Grab some wire. In this case, I am using the Lagerton copper in fine, but if you had extra small in Wapsi, that would work as well. There's lots of different choices you can use. So I'm just going to lay that on my side of the hook, and with thread tension and tension in my left hand, I'm just going to control that wire stays right on my side of the hook. I'm going to go right back down to where it's just above the barb and then come straight back up. Okay, then grab your wire. You're going to make about 7 wraps forward, evenly spaced gaps. Six, 7, whatever you can do to fill that hook up. I'm going to break this off, just simply give it a little helicopter. Then the next piece is some peacock herl. In this peacock herl, I use the herl that's been dyed bright green. I'll cut off this flimsy little tip, And then I like to tie the stem up against the side of the hook. If you can manage that. So that when I pick this up and my first wrap, that peacock curl stands straight up. Run it right up to the back of the bead. Tie it off with a couple of wraps, make sure it's tight. And then I'm going to whip finish. A couple wraps. Then the gills coming off the front of the fly. Basically, I'm going to cut this so that when I'm all done here, it's going to fold back almost to where the peacock curl is. And if you have a little dubbing brush, a needle, open this floss up. Lots of times I'll just grab my whip finish tool. They usually have kind of a tight little point here. You can open it up. Umpqua makes this brush that's really nice. I use it all the time for things like that. And then what I'll do with this wing is, since it's straight across and pretty blunt, I like to come in off to the side and just kind of give it a little wedge cut. You have to have really sharp scissors to do that, but that's it. So when this is in the water, this is going to come back, pop forward, has a lot of some movement to this fly. Also, I've found that this floss is opaque. It doesn't go translucent like some other materials. And it doesn't take on colors of what's in the river. If the river's you get moss on it, it's not going to turn green. It stays really white and has a lot of contrast in the water. So that's it. That is the Rojo Midge. You can tie it in several colors. We got a new purple that's been a big hit. I also do it in red, which is probably the #1 sold fly in this series by Umpqua. There's also an olive, and my personal favorite is the black, size 20. I probably fish that throughout the winter. Pretty much any river system, even though it's a little bit bigger, it works really well. So, Rojo Midge, give it a shot. Thank you. So here's a newer pattern with Umpqua. It's called the Darth Baetis. I want to show you that the one that's on the camera right now is a purple one, but I'd like to show everybody the original color scheme, which is a brown and with a red head. And the reason why I came up with that fly was that I used to take a lot of throat samples from fish, and I would notice that probably 80% of the live bugs in my palm of my hand had a reddish head to them, a reddish or a rust. And from talking to some fish biologists, they had told me that that was actually the male of the Baetis that I was fishing. So I just thought, well, there's got to be a reason why these fish are really keying in on that there's so many of these rust-colored eyed bugs in their throats. So that's why I kind of came up with this pattern. And there's so many Baetis patterns out there. It's kind of the holy grail of a Tyer is to come up with a really good Baetis pattern. I probably worked on this thing for 5 years, fishing it, giving it to buddies, have them fish it. And I wanted to do something more than just a thread-bodied fly. So here's what I came up with. The hook we're going to be using is a Umpqua 2488. It's got a straight eye to it, which I really like, straight eyes. And we'll be tying on a size 16 today. That's the top range of what's being produced. So I'm going to start my thread, which is this brown camel uni thread, right at about the 75% point on this hook to about 3 wraps back. And then I'm going to grab some tailing material, which is some CDL tailing material. And I'm going to grab about 12, 14 fibers. I don't really measure it or count them. What I'm going to do is I'm looking more for what my bulk is going to be back here. So we'll actually be able to see it once this is wet. So pull your fibers perpendicular to the stem, grab the stem and pull it straight off. That'll keep all your tips nice and even. And I kind of always wet it just to kind of see what my profile is going to be. Then I can bring my thread right back to above the barb, or where it just starts to kind of gently go down. I'm going to do one. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting these fibers at a 45-degree angle down. I'm doing a very soft wrap. And then on my second wrap, I increase my tension, and that should just roll right on top. At this point, if I had miscalculated my measurement of my tail, I can come in and readjust it, or I could take it off the hook and remount it, but that seemed to work okay right there. Now, another thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to attach the ribbing of this fly. Remember, I got 2 wraps on there, so I'm going to just attach my wire right there, go right back up to my tie-in points of where I first attached my thread, cut that tailing material off. Now, by attaching that wire back at the tail versus coming back up, tie in all my tail material, then tie in my wire and come right back, and then my thread back forward, I've taken out 2 passes of thread. Probably doesn't seem like a big deal right now, but when you're tying this fly down into a size 22, it makes a huge difference on the bulk of your body. I've even tied this in bigger sizes, 14s, even 12s. And at that point, I will come in here and put in a little taper of thread just to kind of give the fly that carrot-shaped form of a true mayfly body. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some of the UV resin. I've put a little drop right on my bobbin on the back side. I'm just going to drop that onto the top of the body. And then with my clean point, I can manipulate this resin right where I want it. It's a very thin coat. You could use, every company's got a lot of different materials, but the thinnest possible UV resin you can get. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cure that, and then I'm going to wrap my wire on top. So if I keep the correct tension on this, it's not going to slip off this hard body. And I've tried this various ways, and the reason why I like doing this is it makes for a very translucent body, where if I put the UV agent on there now, it'd just be like a big lump, which didn't really appeal to me. So now the front half of this thread, or this body, I'm going to change my thread to a red UTC, And basically I just laid that on top of the black, tied it on. That'll keep you from having to whip finish it and just one other step. I'm going to put in a wing case. This is a flashback material that's been dyed black. It's obtainable through hairline. I'm going to just come back to about the 40% point on this hook. And then I'm going to tie in my legs, which is a Vivus Iris thread. And it's kind of a little rope that's got lots of different colors in here. I'm just going to wrap that around my thread, bring my thread to the top, lay that bundle right on top, and then I can just tie both of these pieces in all at once. Okay? Now we just need to dub this, and we're pretty close to finish here. So trying to prep this dubbing already where I pull it out of the package, and I'm just going to kind of pull it and stack it, try to get all the little irregular pieces out. And then just come in here with a little, get that tip started. And just put just a little minute bit of dubbing on here. Remember, a little dubbing on a lot of thread is kind of the key here. And then I'm just going to build in my tapered thorax. Remember, a lot of these Mayflies kind of has a reverse taper to the front of this fly. And then I'm going to come right down, got about, I don't know, head width here. Threads right behind the eye. Going to bring both of these pieces of the iris thread forward, tied in with 2 wraps, pull the far side to the side, and I'm going to come back no more than 2 wraps right there. Pull this one backwards, lay it on the side of the hook, 1 wrap, and then right up to the eye. Then I can bring my wing case over, tie it off with maybe 2 wraps, pull it back, and then everything underneath is kind of the foundation of where that head is. And I can just whip finish this, 2, 3, 4 at the most. Pop that off. And all I need to do is a little trimming and we're done. Snip off that wing case. The reason why I laid that back too is that it's kind of reinforces it so it won't come unbuckled. And then I'm going to cut my legs both at the same time. I just draw both of those legs to the back, come back just right past the wing case, because usually the legs are about 50% the length of the body. And there we go. That is the Darth Baetis. You can tie it in a lot of different colorations. We have it in an olive, a gray, this color, and then also the purple. And hopefully more to come. Darth Baetis, give it a try. It's been a good fly for me. This fly I would like to show everybody is what I call the mini hot. It's a pattern, it's designed, you can fish it as a caddis, you can fish it as a smaller stonefly. You can tie it in a lot of different colors. Originally it was in lime green, orange, a tannish color. And then this year we added red. And I fish a lot of flies that have red in them. And for some reason the red just seems to work really well for me. Maybe it's a confidence on my part, but red works really well. Red hippie stompers at one point was one of my favorite flies. So I fished this fly this summer. We had a lot, or I should say a really great dry fly season. And since I would say from late April, 1st of May, I fished this pattern every day on multiple river systems, and it would always catch a fish for me on any given day. So I'd like to show it to you. It's a new color and not really maybe too popular yet. So what we're doing is I'm going to use a 200R. This is a size 14, and I'm going to attach my thread right at about the 75% point of this hook. The first piece we're going to put on is some micro tubing. I'm just going to do a little pinch wrap to get it started. And then as I come back, I'm going to pull backwards on my tubing just to keep it on top of the hook. Come back where I'm just right above the barb of the hook. Now, all these mini hats have some sort of little hot butt section to them. And what I'm going to do here is this is some Mirage Tencel. I'm going to put a section in right back here. So I'm just going to do about 6 wraps going forward, maybe halfway between the point of the hook and the barb is going to be kind of that measuring point of how long this butt section should be, and you can be consistent from one fly to the other. And then at this point, all I'm going to do is I'm going to count my thread wraps. So I'm just going to do 3 wraps just to get it out of the way. Then I'm going to wrap my flash to that point where I stopped, and then I'll undo my 3 wraps and then tie this in and snip that off. Now on this red version, which is different from all the other mini hots, is at this point I'm going to tie in a piece of red Flashabou. Right at this point, right behind the butt. Bring this forward, bring my thread up to the tie-in point. I'm just going to let these 2 pieces live back here for the moment. Now you can cut this tag off, and normally I'll just kind of keep that there just as a visual reference that this body is right at that 75% point. It's going to help in the proportions of this fly, and that every fly will be the same. So now what I've done is I'm going to take the section, not including the butt. I'm just kind of in my mind quartering that up into 4ths. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back a quarter of the way with my thread, then I'm going to come back forward. And then on this pass, I'm going to come back another quarter, and then back up to the front. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving this body a taper, and by quartering it all up and doing it in this fashion, for me, it enables me to have consistency so that every fly is the same. Okay, so now on this one, you guess it, I'm going to come back another quarter of the fly down, and then back up. If your thread starts to get into too much of a cord, you can just counter spin your bobbin. That'll flatten this out even more. If you're left-hand tire, you would actually spin it clockwise. And then I'm going to bring this right back down to where that butt is, or where it ends, and then back right up to the top. So now we kind of have a nice little carrot natural shape to this body. And then with the red Flashaboo, I'm going to gingerly wrap this forward, trying to do some touch wraps here. When I first started tying this, I would just ribbit with the red. And then the more I played around with this, I really liked the brightness of this body. It slipped a little bit as I came off that collar. So let me just redo this if I can, real quickly. When I say wrap this, kind of being easy with your wraps, Flashaboo is pretty flimsy, so you could easily break it or tear it. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my tubing and I'm going to cover the entire body with this tubing. Now, a lot of folks would think, gosh, you're putting a hard tubing on a dry fly. Isn't that going to make this thing heavy and sink? We're going to rely on the hair and the hackle to make this float. But what this does is it makes this body super flashy when I wrap that on top. Even if I did it on bare thread, you would notice how that color really pops. And then also, it's going to make for a very durable fly. I've been on some float trips where I've used this fly all day long and it never fell apart. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of Prism dubbing. It's another product from Wapsi. And this particular color is sand. Basically what I did was I pulled some of this out of the container. I'm going to tie it in. And then I'm going to fold it back and then wrap right on top of it. And then that will not peel out on you. A couple of stray pieces came forward. Cut this about the length of the body. And then I'll come in and just kind of trim it up a little bit, any little wiry pieces. And then I'm going to tie in the wing. This is yearling egg elk that's been dyed, or I should say bleached, I'm sorry. Always want to clean your hair, get out all that under fur, any stray pieces, and put the tips down in your stacker. Might have a little camera shake there. And then there's our tips all nicely evened up. How much do we use here? That's another question I get a lot. You know, maybe start with a bundle that's about equal to the gap of the hook. And then you can take a few pieces off if you feel that it's too much. Sometimes if you get too much of this on there, it'll have a tendency to want to roll off the hook as well. I'll show you a couple little tricks for that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my measurements so that it just comes off the end of the hook. I'm going to change hands. My bobbin's been sitting there for a while I've been talking, so I'm just going to tighten up this thread. Counter, or I should say a clockwise twist to my bobbin. I'm going to do 2 wraps and then tighten up. And if you notice here, I'm tightening towards my body so that thread torque tension keeps that right on top. I can let go of that bundle and it's not going to go anywhere. But to make sure, I'm going to pull a few of these fibers back, make a wrap right in that crease, and I'm going to continue doing that forward. So this really ties in this wing. Okay, each time put her right in that crease. A few more, bring my thread up to about 1 eye width back. And at this point, I can separate my butts of this hair from the tips of the wing. And I'm going to cut this off at an angle. You know, kind of think of a wedge. You can come from the front. You can come from the side if you'd like. Just cut that off. And then now with my thread, I'm going to come back through this bundle and tighten it and clean this next tie-in point for the next 2 materials. You can also see that by creating that little wedge when I cut it, creates kind of just a natural taper down towards the eye. Come back on my wing about, I started everything at about 25% here, 75 back. So I tie my wing back onto the body so I don't have any gaps. You can check, make sure none of your hair has come over on the sides, but that wing is in there. I could pull on this until the hook came out of the vise and that hair would still be intact. So next piece, we only have a couple more steps here. I have a grizzly rooster hackle. I've peeled back a few of the barbs, so I just have some bare stem. I have enough bare stem here that where I tie it in on my side of the hook, it's going to start right about there, go up to the base of the wing, and then I'm still going to have enough bare stem that when I start to wrap my hackle, I got a little space so that my hackle doesn't shoot backwards, it stands straight up. So that's the whole reason for doing this. Okay, capture that on your side of the hook. Bring it back to the base of the wing and then come right back down so that we can start our dub. Now, before I go any further, I always check to make sure that my wing is, or I should say my hackle is tied in the right position so it's not cupped in the wrong position. All right, back to some prism dubbing. Actually, this is ice. In a peacock black. It's kind of a gnarly dubbing, pretty coarse, but if you just kind of start with just a little bit, you can only bear down on your dubbing noodle here. You can get that compressed pretty easily. Whenever you're dubbing, just go in this same direction. Don't go back and forth. And a little dubbing on a lot of thread is okay. Then come right back down to the eye. And then grab our hackle. And what I'm going to do is, there's my first wrap. Come forward. There's 3, 4. I'm being careful not to twist my stem. so that my hackle starts jutting forward. Come down to the eye here. Tie that in. A couple wraps, trim this off. And now we can build up our little eye, clean things up. We'll whip finish, 2, 3, 4. Tightened up. Don't have to, but it makes these flies a little bit more durable. Just do a little bit of head cement on there. Really like this hairline artist hull penetrator. Plus it smells really good. That's it. That's the mini hot. Now you can fish this in many ways. You can fish it alone, of course. You can fish it as maybe your first fly, as an attractor, and then drop a smaller caddis behind it or a parachute of your choice. You can drop a bead off of it as well, bead nymph. Real productive fly for me this year. New color for Umpqua. Please give it a try, and I think it'll catch a lot of fish for you. It's been one of my favorites this season. So this next fly I'm going to tie is a brand new fly for 2021. Forgot what year I was in. Anyway, this is a Mayfly mini hot. So it is kind of a takeoff on the original mini hot, but in a Mayfly configuration. And it's going to be a parachute pattern, because who makes the best parachute patterns in the world? Umpqua flies. Something about their Mayfly parachutes are just perfect. Anyway, so hook is just a 100. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my thread at about the, let's say 70% point on this hook. So there's 50, so right about there, I would say it's about 75%. Do my jam knot. I'm going to bring my thread straight back to tie on our tail, which is some CDL tailing material from Whiting, dyed purple. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab about 13, 14 pieces, not really going to count them. I know this looks really thick here, like I have too much material, but once this is mounted, you'll see it'll still look nice. I'm going for more of a profile than it being the actual amount, 3 separate little tails in the back on a Mayfly. So I've grabbed the tips. I'm going to again grab this stem, pull that all off so that everything lines up. Tails of an adult Mayfly is about the length of the body. So I make my measurement, 45-degree angle. First wrap is soft. Second wrap, I increase my tension. Everything rolls on top. And there's my tail. Next, for the hot butt section. This is a fairly new material that I get from Hairline. It's called Chroma Flash. This is a color is blue sardine. It's got a purple hue to it, especially once it's tied in with the purple thread. And as you can notice here, what I'm doing is I'm just wrapping, I'm tying in a piece that's about as length that comes to the end of the point of the fly. I'm going to go 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do 7 wraps. And now I can grab my material and wrap that forward. Okay. Tie this off. I'm going to cut everything to the length of my tie-in point. Oops, I need some more coffee, I guess. That just ensures that that body is nice and smooth and no lumps or bumps. So next I'm going to bring my thread back up to my eye. I'm going to come back. I should probably explain what I'm going to do here is that there is about 25% point there of my hook remaining that's bare. Basically, I'm going to run my thread up to the eye and then come back halfway of this last piece. What that does is it just ensures that every time I tie this fly, my post is tied in at the exact point. So I'm just using my my hook is kind of a gauge. Next piece is parapost. And just cut this whole strip off. It comes in the package just like that. I can quarter it. And then if I'm going to tie a bunch of these, I can do that again. So then I don't have a lot of waste. So I can just cut all of those and then move forward. But as you notice on all of these, they're twisted. So I'm going to come in with my comb, get any of those cuts, or I should say any of those tangles out. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to use one big long piece just so to show you here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a pinch wrap. Make sure it's centered where I want it. Do another wrap, make sure it's really tight. Turn this wing perpendicular to the hook shank. Then from the front, I'm going to go to the back on the far side, 2 wraps. Make 1 wrap around the hook just to ensure nothing's going to move. And then now I'm going to go from the back of the wing to the front, doing X wraps basically. 1 more wrap around the entire shank. And right now, if I was wanting to tie a spinner, that's a spinner wing. So now I can pull this straight up. What I'm going to do is my first wrap going counterclockwise is right on the base of this post. I'm going to come up about 3-4 wraps. I'm going to hold this post and then I'm going to tighten. Tighten up. How far up this post am I going to make? Think of this colored thread as about 1.5 lengths the eye of your hook. Okay, now I'm going to come straight back down. I can do that same thing, 3 wraps, tighten. There we go. Then 1 more wrap right around the hook shank. This is a good time to come in with some head cement. Just at the base of the wing, maybe give it a little coat. And then I'll also hit my little hot butt section there in the back, just to give it a little bit of some durability. Okay. On this particular color, which is, I'm going to tie the purple one, we're going to use some grizzly hackle. Going to, again, pull some fibers perpendicular to the stem, pop those off so that I have enough bare stem that I can tie this in right behind the eye and then come straight up, still allowing to have a little bit of bare stem up there. And I'm going to come right back down. Before I go forward, I'm just going to make sure that this cup has been tied against this wing post so that when I wrap it, it's actually going to be cupped up, not down. Okay, now we just need a little bit of dubbing and wind that hackle, and we're going to be done with this fly. So dubbing is, this is fine and dry in purple. Again, just a little bit of dubbing on a lot of hook, or I should say a lot of thread. I like it just to be consistent noodle, not a lot of bumps, or go from thick to thin back and forth. So what I'm going to do here to dub this body, I'm actually going to start right behind the eye. I'm going to come up to the post, and then behind the post, and I'm going to create my actual width or thickness of this fly that I'm going to want at the end, right behind the wing here. Some more dubbing in the thread. You can start your dubbing back at the butt section if you'd like, but what I've found is this kind of keeps this big gap you have a tendency to have underneath this wing. And then now I can go right back down to the butt. Think of your thread just right at the tip of the hook. And then now I can come up forward. And then if there's any little gaps, I can fill that in. Give my nice little carrot shape taper. Maybe just a pinch more dubbing to finish this off. Try not to get any lumps in there at this point. Remember, just a lot of dubbing or a little dubbing on a lot of thread. I'm going to come right up. Got my nice little carrot shaped taper. And my last wrap of dubbing, I'm going to stop and have my thread hanging on the far side of the hook, just right below my post. Now we can grab the hackle, make a wrap, make sure it's in the right direction. And I like using these Umpqua spinning hackle pliers. If you're doing any parachutes, this tool is worth its worth the money. And then I'm just going to start wrapping. And again, I'm wrapping counterclockwise. There's 2, 3, 4. You can kind of dip it down if you need to as you go. Don't trap any of your previous fibers. Okay, when you feel that the thickness and consistency is right, just reach on the far side of your vise, grab your bobbin, and then I'm going to tie this hackle off actually right onto the post. Now I can let this go. Going to pick this up, build up my little head. You know, a little tapered cone-shaped head is always nice. Your hackle ply or your whip finish, as long as that hackle is bent back a little bit. Whip finish. Make sure your thread is tight. Hi, I'm Greg Garcia. I'm here. Grab your bobbin, and then I'm going to tie this hackle off actually right onto the post. Now I can let this go. Going to pick this up, build up my little head. You know, a little tapered cone-shaped head is always nice. Your hackle ply or your whip finish, as long as that hackle is bent back a little bit. Whip finish. Make sure your thread is tight. Now all we got to do is a little trimming here. So as you can see, that's what that looks like right now. So I can come in, I can cut my hackle off. It's not going to go anywhere. And then I can cut my wing, which usually what I kind of shoot for is about the length of the body. So I'll just make one straight cut across. And if that's a little blunt, you can come in. I'm going to just turn my vise on my side. Got a little front lid leading edge on the front of the wing, and then same thing on the back. So that's got a little bit more of appearance of a true Mayfly wing. So there we go. That is the Mayfly Mini Hot. So this fly is actually going to be produced in a few different colors. There's an orange and a gray one that I've had work very well during a caddis hatch. But primarily these flies are, again, an attractor pattern, something that's a little different than what the fish is seeing every day, many times. So throw something different to them. This little hot butt will get their attention. I've tried to come up with some neat little schemes. One looks like a little green butt, skunk coloration, if you're familiar with that famous steelhead fly. But normally what I'll do, if I don't fish this by itself, if I'm on a very technical stream, tailwater, maybe I'll tie this on as my first fly. And then behind that, I'm going to have a little trico spinner, or maybe a small little Baetis emerger, something that might be matching that hatch directly. Attractor, again, smaller, true fly right on the backside. On a bigger freestone, I may just fish this by itself, or I will fish this as the trailer behind a large attractor pattern, whether it's a hopper, original mini hot, whatever fly of your choice, PMX, you name it. Give it a try. I've found them to fish very well, and even better, they're a lot of fun to tie. Thanks for watching. Hello, again, I'm Greg Garcia. Thanks for watching the Umpqua Signature Tyer section. I'm really honored to be part of this, and I hope you've enjoyed these flies. I hope you can tie them and or fish them yourself, and I hope they give you a lot of good luck.